Coming to you live here from Pontianak, or Kuntien, the capital of the Indonesian province of West Kalimantan, founded first as a trading port on the island of Borneo, occupying an area of 118.21 square kilometers in the delta of the Kapuas River, at a point where it is joined by its major tributary, the Landak River. And here today, of course, with ESL Open Cup Asia Division number 222. Perfect number. I'm, of course, your host, Yaku of the Zaku, and with me today we have El que fija los presupuestos y posi muchos cubos de pollo, Light _ VIP. How we doing, Light?
Todos los cubos de pollo, papi. Let's go. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to another week of ESL Open Cup Asia, as you were saying, and we already have our first series. I apologize for the delay, for the extended break here that we had before we did begin, but we will start the ball rolling, and we won't stop until we crown our champion. We have our first match of the night.
Indeed, we do. And spawning over here in the bottom right-hand corner of the match, spawning all the way in the bottom right, a player who has been waiting about as long as we have for an opponent. He is, of course, coming down from the land of Korea, the Red Protoss, representing Weibo Gaming. It's herO.
If it bothers you, you just call it WBG. Like it's okay. It's
Is that copyrighted?
Maybe. And spawning in the top left-hand corner, we have the South Korean Zerg player, the Blue Zerg, representing Gaming Gladiators. It is SHIN.
SHIN, somebody who expects a lot from himself, I think, today, and we're definitely having our eyes on him as well. Earlier on, while we were setting things up, obviously, we had a few changes to the rules when it comes to seeding, and SHIN was aghast that he was the 10th seed today.
Yes, maybe 10th seed in EPT or in this week's standings, but still an amazing player in his own right. You know, SHIN, he has been actually getting better and better results here, especially as of late in some of these bigger events, like your IM Katowice's. But despite that, like, it is sometimes his inconsistency that can sometimes pull him back or drag him back a little bit, to kind of like, in a way, takes him away from players like, I don't know, your Sola or your Dark or something, but he has so much, he still has so much more potential as a player, I should say. And yeah, even in this series, SHIN versus herO, he definitely has it in him to cause a bit of an upset. I know herO is a big favorite for the entire tournament, but SHIN against herO in the first round is crazy.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Which is, again, partially why he was so shocked. That this is how, with the changes to how seeding works here, this is kind of his path. This is going to be his first match today, but like you said, there's a lot of potential going on here. Obviously, the major issue with SHIN a lot of times is, you know, which SHIN
True.
is here today who has shown up to the tournament. Is it that fantastic? Is it that massive-brained 1,000 IQ SHIN who always seemed 10 steps ahead of his opponents of the caliber of Classic, of Solar and whatnot? Or is it a SHIN who isn't that?
We're gonna say, which SHIN do we get? The left or the right? You know, like, it matters.
The angel or the devil.
Exactly. And I'm here for it. We do see SHIN already mining through these mineral patches, going for the triangular third base location on the left-hand side. So going for a bit of a safer expansion, safer at least against glaive adepts or against adept aggression. But herO is a very unpredictable player, and he's going for what looks to be actually a standard opener as we load into Amphion. He'll still being aggressive, being active with these adepts and with these oracles. Oracles pick off a couple of links, but we did get us around on those adepts.
That we do. So a couple of them do get, a couple of Zerglings, I should say, do get picked off by these oracles, but The Adepts go down, and overall, at this stage of the game, Zerglings are pretty negligible.
Oh yeah, they are. As we get across the map, we pick off another one of the Adepts just before the shield battery finishes up. So very nice pick off here. Shield battery not quite done in time, but herO hasn't lost too much else. Thankfully, the third base is getting up and running. Shield battery is now done, and we're following this up with a bit of a gateway explosion. It's going to be 4 gates in total, so nothing too major here. Just trying to settle in towards a longer mid game.
Yeah, Blink +1. Pretty much the standard when it comes to, or the standard nowadays when it comes to gateway play in PvZ. So there was a little bit of a time a couple of weeks ago where a lot of players were experimenting with +1 charge and adept-based builds, but it seems like we're coming back to what is natural and to what our players know works. A much more reliable unit composition. Speaking of reliability, one Oracle already goes out.
Yeah, an Oracle does fall. We have 2 left. We got 2 drones in the main base, but that is still not good enough. Not for an Oracle. That is a big win here for SHIN. And we'll see if we can maintain ourselves. We'll see if we can minimize our losses. There are still 2 Oracles that still have potential for damage, but only potential. Meanwhile, that is another big gateway explosion. We already had 4 gateways. Now we're going for 4 more.
We're not going to get a 4th here, are we? No. At least not a 4th Nexus.
That is a very fast 8-gate setup on 3 bases. Gases have not been taken. This tells us that we're not taking up into a Temple Archives. There's no Robo, there's no Bay, there's no Colossus, there's no Splash Damage, there's no 4th base. What is there? Mass Blink Stalker.
Yeah, it's very important right now that SHIN has been able to scout this, I believe, with an Overseer. But what is the response going to be? You know, the setup has already been set up, or the production has already been set up, and herO's going to be knocking down SHIN's door very, very shortly. Now, he doesn't have a Robo, so Warp Prisms aren't going to be an option. If herO wants to have quicker warp-ins, he does have to, there we go, invest in another gateway. It's going to take a while for that gateway to finish up.
Yeah, for those that are curious,
he's already got a very scary army.
Yeah, this is just straight up a 3-base all-in. It's a 3-base all-in here at a herO. It's all or nothing for our Protoss player, already laying siege upon the natural base. Hydras are amassing, Roaches are on the way. The Roach one is under fire. Roach speed does barely finish up, but it's going to be going down. No more Roaches here for SHIN.
Yeah, I mean, he's got Hydras. I'm not sure if Hydras are really what you want against +1 Blink Stalkers here. Vanilla Hydras at that. Group Spines did just finish up, so they can try to go toe-to-toe with them at the same range, but obviously they're just nowhere near as mobile.
Yeah, you can see how brutal this choke point is. Like, Lings, they flood in, and they just barely can get a surround on this army. The Blinks have been beautiful. We have Sage Stress behind this as well. The creep is going to be receding, and here we go, pushing forward. And what's dangerous, as we're bleeding out Lings, the Hydras are exposed, and Hydras are expensive units here for SHIN. He cannot afford to lose them.
You absolutely cannot, and ordinarily you want to have Roaches as your buffer, but as you pointed out, Roachhorn did go down, only now is it being rebuilt. SHIN is in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, so far the arc is good, and we have retained these Hydras for the time being. We've mainly been bleeding out Lings. You're looking at the Unisoul side, you can see here 64 Lings and 4 Roaches have gone down. Not a single Hydra has been killed yet, which is ideal here for SHIN. We'll see if we can keep it up, because herO is not stopping, as he's even expanding here on the front lines. Oh my god!
May as well. He's gonna have shield battery overcharge to fall back to.
Unironically, yeah, he will have the overcharge. Nexus almost done. We shave off more Lings. Again, the Hydras still maintain themselves. Really nice control here at a SHIN, building up that Hydra count. And now I feel like we're hitting critical mass of Hydra. Like, this is an amount that we usually do not see. But herO, I guess, has a 4th base, technically. True.
Yeah, technically he does. But you know what? So does SHIN. And because of that 4th base that he had, that he got pretty early on. It's a hybrid base as well. That's partially why he is able to amass this amount of Roaches and Hydras. SHIN hasn't been trading as well, army versus army, but herO also hasn't really been able to dent the economy of SHIN yet.
He really hasn't, and as you mentioned, because of this base, because of this map specifically, there's already a 4th base, and it's not really being threatened whatsoever here by herO. He's gonna be pushing in, catches a couple of workers, but now we have the freedom to take up into a hive, to take up into Lunkers.
They are on the way. And that's absolutely how you want to shut down stalker aggression like this. Just park a couple of lurkers on the ramp. I think with range, they might actually be in range of that 4th base, that 4th Nexus as well.
I wonder if you can actually, shoot over this cliff face. I wonder if that's possible with lurkers. We're about to find out. Jump Lord's on the way as well. Let's go for the time being. Again, Shin just holding onto the ramp. I mean, herO's doing well preserving his army and blinking back, but he cannot break Shin. He cannot kill him and cannot deny any of this mining here at these gold minerals.
Yeah, he's trading so well. If you look at the units lost tab, but trading well is not going to be enough at this point. Shin can afford to throw away units.
Yeah, and again, it's still so important here that if you look at the units lost tab, we've killed 38 roaches. That's a lot of roaches, but barely any hydras have fallen. They've been preserved this entire time. They've been just gaining value, and we are now getting lurkers as we speak. 2 lurkers are on the way. herO does spot them though.
Yeah, and he blinks straight ahead. Will get the revelation of massive flank of charge lots as well. Is going to be absolutely massive here. It's going to completely disrupt the firing, the volleys of Shin's army.
Yeah, we shut down the lurkers. We got on top of the hydras. That was a massive surround, and with that surround, again, a flank that even caught me off guard. It looks like herO has done it. Again, this was an all-in. I mean, kind of an all-in. We had a 4th base, I guess, mining ahead of time. GG gets called, and herO breaks through, takes game number 1.
Whew, GG. Once again, I think the herO that we all know and love here on the channel, a very brazen style coming out here. Not just with that 8-gate all-in, but also stealing your opponent's base and taking it as your 4th while you're continuing your pseudo all-in. I mean, it was so hyper-aggressive.
Yeah.
It was just that he was also mining.
It's honestly so smart. like
yeah.
It's unironically such a big brain move to go for an 8-gate all-in the way that herO did, and to expand with your army right next to your army where you're applying pressure, you're containing your opponent, so Shin couldn't do anything about the 4th base of herO. herO knocked down those rocks, and we saw it was so important that those rocks got knocked down. If the game had gone on any longer, if the lurkers had actually finished and amassed, it would have been Shin's game. Shin would have taken that then and there, but herO, he was able to get that insane surround with those zealots. And fun fact, Shin was actually looking at the replay there. I'm sure he was actually checking to see the 4th base, and with that, that was just a wild turn of events for herO. Just a really interesting way, a really creative way to go about that.
Oh, without a doubt. I'm bringing up Google Lens because I want to see what our players are. A little bit of banter going in the chat here.
There is. I'm sure Shin's like, what? You had a 4th base? What the hell's going on?
Yeah. Well. They're calling go, so I guess I'll have to wait. Just take a screenshot real quick. Figure out another point, but yeah, that was, as you pointed out, very smart play. I feel like Shin was probably doing the best he could when it came to defending for the longest time. That game breaker, like you pointed out, was herO taking down those rocks. Shin, with that earlier 4th in the hybrid base, the point of that base is to allow you to expand much safer. So I'm sure Shin was feeling very secure there. Yeah. I'm sure he was feeling that he didn't have to keep eyes on that part of the map, but as we found out, as herO demonstrated, you actually do.
Oh yeah, it was a wild game, and here we go, spawning in the bottom right-hand corner of Site Delta, we have our red Protoss player representing Weibo Gaming, leading the series 1-0. It is herO.
And over here in the top left-hand corner of the map, spawning all the way over here in the top left, we of course have our blue Zerg player coming down from the land of Korea. He, of course, is going to be representing his team, Gaming Gladiators. We have Shin. Ramen.
We go. Also, go on.
I don't know, I was just going to make a dumb joke of how, get your ramen quick if you're living in Scandinavia, because they're getting rid of those.
Well, I mean, that's why we got the ramen emote in the chat now. Now we have ramen for everyone. There you go.
Exactly.
There you go. But I also have to say that I did get a rough translation of what was being said between the players. For those that are curious, Shin and herO had a brief conversation before this game, and basically Shin was saying that he didn't know about the 4th, and that if he did, he would have gone for a faster lurker den. He's like, oh, like I could have gone for faster lurkers if I had known that you were expanding and you weren't committing as hard initially. So he was just lamenting a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm lamenting about that. I'm lamenting about the fact that we never got to see the lurkers shoot through the gap.
True. True.
But yeah, it's a game of incomplete information, unfortunately.
Yeah, and again, just a really
Hindsight.
interesting adaptation out of herO, right? Because what he did wasn't necessarily normal. Like we have seen a bit of an upswing of 3-base all-ins with 8 gateways, the way that herO was doing it. But you had to like expand with your army like that and contain your opponent and keep that base hidden as well and take advantage of it. Like it's unique. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Like you're thinking outside the box and it worked.
He thought outside the box. He broke down a box of walls. That doesn't work. Never mind. He thought outside the box and was able to break a wall. That's the analogy. I'm sticking to that.
We get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Broke down the walls that we believe are StarCraft. And I mean, again, herO is an innovator, right? Like he did popularize many styles and many even current metas that we have nowadays as well. herO is a bit of a pioneer in that sense, and yeah, I mean, it's great to see him still just, I mean, not even just in that game, but we've seen time and time again, he's just a very aggressive player, very adaptive player, and at times really hard to read as he just comes up with his own approach to things.
Yeah. Very decisive player. A very decisive player, a rather cunning player. I feel like I can count with one hand the amount of players who, if anything gets scouted, they just immediately and instinctually know how to switch things around. So herO is one of them. I would probably count Mika as another. Haas probably.
I think I might put SHIN in that group as well a little bit. Like SHIN's also
Actually, yeah.
Yeah, he can
Now
be,
you mentioned it.
He can be really wild, and he's known for having his own big brain as well, and kind of going for his own approach and own builds at times. So yeah, that's why it's really cool. I mean, another important thing to take note of is that SHIN and herO are really good friends. They were both on CJ for a long time, and even nowadays, like every now and then you see on like their Instagram and stuff like that where they go out and then like they have like these outings with all their friends, you know, with herO, with SHIN, with Bunny as well. They all hang out from time to time.
Good old CJ boys.
Yeah.
I don't think I can. Yeah. There's something about that team. I don't think there's a single member of CJ who is still currently active who doesn't have that, you know, cunning within them.
Exactly. As the Oracles that have into the main base, this time much more successful. 5 drones go down. Very nicely done here by herO. So a much stronger start. If you remember last game, he only got 2 drones and he lost an Oracle as well. So this time a little bit more successful as we're entering the same standard setup.
Yeah. Forge about to finish up. Twilight Council on the way. We'll keep our eyes on that production tab, because I'm sure we want to know as much as SHIN wants to know. How many gateways is herO throwing down this time?
Yeah. How many gateways, Puppy? How many gateways? For now, we confirm the 3rd base. Oracles are still amassing outside the bases as well, looking to threaten a dive. Again, this time we still have 3 Oracles alive. There's that much more firepower as we dip towards the natural.
It's again, great target firing coming out from herO. One-shotting these drones one after another.
Oh my god!
A lot of damage being dealt to these Oracles, but only one of them goes down so far. This time, well worth it though, compared to the previous game.
Yeah, that is 1 Oracle for 13 drone kills. Well worth it here for herO. Very nicely done. With that, he does keep the economy in check. SHIN has to rebuild and reset his workers in each of his bases. And back at home, we are transitioning into +1 and Blink Stalkers once again.
Yeah, once again, you know, it's just a very versatile unit composition that you can go for. We saw herO do a pseudo all-in with it in game number 1, but it doesn't have to be an all-in. It's just still very strong if you're going to be playing standard macro as well. So long as you eventually transition into the late game. I feel like that's an important caveat to throw down.
Yeah. I mean, we'll keep an eye on the gateways. As you mentioned, right, we're going to keep an eye on the gateways, make sure that herO takes gases and techs up. For the time being, we only have a 6-gate setup here in between the bases, which is standard on 3 bases. Is going to be moving out with some of these Stalkers, but it looks like we should be looking to expand and move on from here.
Oh! The Lings got surrounded, but the Stalkers actually didn't get surrounded either. They almost did.
I don't know if you saw that. The probe got shut down. There was a probe with the army, and now we have a backup probe on the way. Pylon's going to be thrown down, and do you see what I see? 2 more gateways. That's going to be an 8K 3-base all-in once again out of herO.
A little bit of a staggered way we went about this here from the side of herO, but all paths lead to the same destination in the end, I suppose. One Oracle goes down, so nice snipe there from SHIN, but he is still working purely with Lings for the time being.
Yes, similar to last game, but once again we get a surround. The pylon goes down. Well, the pylon gets surrounded and will fall, so will the probe as well. So a nice setup here by SHIN will delay reinforcements. Once again, herO is adamant about throwing down that pylon, about reinforcing, about committing.
It's all about that commitment.
It is. As once again, reinforcements are on the way, yet to take extra gases, yet to expand either. herO is gaining ground. He's actually breaking through this defensive line of Lings, and there are not too many Hydras behind this.
That there are not. In fact, there are, okay, there were only 2 for a second, but yeah, still 6 Hydras. That is nowhere near enough.
Yeah, we're still building up additional Hydras. Nice transfuse on the Queen, but Lings have fallen left and right, and herO is still gaining ground. I was curious if he was going to expand behind this, and once again, he is. So a very similar setup, actually, from that previous game, where he's expanding with the army right next to it, or as close as he can.
Yeah, may as well. Still going to continue mining from that, obviously. Still going to, in the worst case scenario, have a defensive line to fall back on shield batteries and battery overcharge. Stalker count is getting higher and higher and higher, and herO once again with his blink control is just barely taking any damage or barely taking any losses with his army.
Yeah, exactly, as we are pushing forward, shaving off more of these things. At the same time, Zelrambe hitting some of these fringe bases. This is the downside of this map. On Amphion, the 4th base was left untouched. Here on side Delta, the 4th is much more exposed.
Yeah, you can really see that eating into SHIN's income right now. As said about this stage of the game previously, SHIN, he had more Hydras, he was working on a Lurker Den, he had Roaches to work with, but this time, not so much. herO able to split the army, the Zerg army in 2, and fight them 1 by 1. Have a much easier time pushing forward. Yeah, lost his oracles, but as you mentioned, that Zealot army was doing a great job of just distracting SHIN. We caught so many Hydras in the process. Quickly looking at the units. Last time, that was 21 Hydras going down. A massive amount of losses there for SHIN. Behind this, we are still expanding, getting our base up and running, and we're going in for what looks to be potentially the kill here. We have so many Stalkers. Look at the units. We have 33 Stalkers to 12 Hydras. And these are +2 Stalkers versus 0 upgraded Hydras as well. SHIN so far has been focusing on melee, but that was not the play. GG is called, and herO, with the same build or with the same overall style, is going to be able to take that series 2-0.
GG, well played. herO does take the win here, and with the same build 2 games in a row. What I will say, again, really interesting, just because we cast StarCraft quite a lot, Yaku. You know, here on the CranKy Ducklings on a daily basis, multiple times a day. This variation of 8 gate all-in from herO is a new one. This is a very new variation of this build that clearly, I think the reason why herO did it twice is he's practicing it in a tournament now. Like he's probably been cooking in custom games.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, and now he's bringing it here to a tournament setting, and it's an interesting one. So usually when you go for an 8-gate all-in, you don't actually get the Forge. You skip the Forge so you can afford more Stalkers. But with this variation, we're still getting the Forge early on. We're still getting +1, which is what makes it look a little bit more macro-oriented.
Eventually got +2, yeah.
Yeah, and it is more macro-oriented, right? Because you are getting +2, as you mentioned. Because we get a 4th base as well, we actually have a better economy. And it's wild. Like, SHIN was doing a good job at denying the pylon. He denied the pylon like 3 times to like delay warp-ins. That's true, but SHIN was also still cutting corners. It was in both games where SHIN, at least especially here in game 2, where SHIN decided to skip Roaches completely. It was going straight up Ling Hydra instead, which was a little bit greedier, and we saw herO was able to punish that greed quite hard as well.
Yeah, had a much less difficult time breaking through those Zerg defenses this time compared to on Amphion. It's a weird build. It feels like it sits in it feels like it sits in kind of its own unholy corner of classification, where it's like it's kind of an all-in, but it's not really an all-in, and it's kind of macro, but it's not really macro.
It's committed. It's very committed.
It's committed.
Because even though you're getting a fourth base, like, you're not taking in any other direction, right? Like, there's no work toward. There's no robo, right? There's no robo. There's no potential for immortals or colossus or splash damage. Like, I feel like if you do somehow make it to something like lurker tech, like, there's no good answer for that. But we haven't seen at least SHIN make it to that point yet against this build specifically. So yeah, it's an interesting one here, an interesting variation out of herO, and I'm curious to see how it works in the upcoming matches. So herO advances on into the quarterfinals, where potentially he's going to be facing off against another Zerg player in Dark, and if he does the same builds, I'm curious how Dark does approach it as well.
Yeah. I cannot wait for this to become meta.
Oh no.
For this to grace the ladder, and for this to grace premier tournaments as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would just imagine that you'd have to play a little bit more Lingbane, Lingroach Ravager heavy instead. But it's also maybe a little bit map dependent. And I also don't know how much we're gonna learn if herO does play against Dark, because Dark's probably gonna go for his own all-ins as well. So I don't know if we're gonna get there. You know, I don't know if we're gonna get to herO getting into his 3-base setup.
We're not really gonna. Yeah, it's like we're not really gonna be able to gleam or to learn too much about how this build really interacts with other builds, because or with other normal builds, because most likely herO's gonna go up against a player who isn't exactly normal.
Exactly.